Welcome to the Mindful Fire Podcast, a show about crafting a life you love and making work optional, using the tools of mindfulness, envisioning, and financial independence. I'm your host, Adam Cuello, and I'm so glad you're here. Each episode of the Mindful Fire Podcast explores these three tools through teachings, guided meditations, and inspiring interviews with people actually living them to craft a life they love. At its core, Mindful Fire is about creating more awareness and choice in your life. Mindfulness helps you develop self-awareness to know yourself better and what's most important to you by practicing a kind, curious awareness. Envisioning is all about choosing to think big about your life and putting the power of your predicting brain to work to create the life you dream of. And financial independence brings awareness and choice to your financial life, empowering you to make your vision a reality by getting your money sorted out and ultimately making work optional. And here's the best part. You don't have to wait until you reach financial independence to live out your vision. Mindful Fire is about using these tools to craft that life now on the path to financial independence and beyond. If you're ready to start your Mindful Fire journey, go to mindfulfire.org/start and download my free envisioning guide. In just 10 minutes, this guide will help you craft a clear and inspiring vision for your life. Again, you can download it for free at mindfulfire.org/start. Let's jump into today's episode. Dan, welcome to the Mindful Fire Podcast. I'm so thrilled to have you here.
Great to be here. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this one for a while. The work that you're doing to empower employees to get their head out of the sand and realize that them and their employers are not always on the same page and they need to be ready and protect themselves has been an absolute game changer. And I recommend your content to everyone. So I'm excited to dive into this with you on the podcast today, especially when we're thinking about how do we build resilience on the path to financial independence and beyond. So thanks for being here.
Great to be here. Thank you. My pleasure.
So Dan, I'd love to have you start by sharing a little bit about who you are, your journey, and what you're up to in the world.
Absolutely. I'm a passionate guy with everything I do. I'm either all in or not. I've always been someone who questioned things, wondered why things were, never took because as an answer when I was growing up. And as a result, I help employees advocate for themselves. I help to empower them to stand up to wrongdoing by their employer, to not carry years or decades of regret. Oftentimes, the employment landscape traumatizes a lot of people, and they carry that around with them for years or decades on to the next job. And they're a shell of themselves. They lose their self-confidence. The employer basically gaslights them. People have blind trust and faith in authority figures, whether it's religious leaders, police officers, doctors, lawyers, employers, and there's good and bad in all walks of life. And when we blindly trust and don't question, we set ourselves up to be taken advantage of. And I've seen it happen for decades and decades, hundreds, if not thousands of stories. I have taken upon myself to shine a bright spotlight on this situation, to make people aware of these things and to support them in their employment to stand up. And as a result, my practice was born. It actually kind of came about by an accident, to tell you the truth. My passion forever has been helping salespeople validate commission pay, not only to validate it, but to identify and quantify pay errors. And I created a application in a company called True Commish to do so, and didn't raise any money, bootstrapped the business, didn't charge anybody anything for it, didn't take any salary. That was like pushing a snowball up the hill, trying to get salespeople to actually do something like that. And, we had some success with it. But as a way to promote it, I just started using LinkedIn. I've never used social media in my life. I pretty much hated it with a passion. Don't like anything about it. But I said, you know what? I've done too much here and gone too far and too passionate about this just to let it die. So I said, all right, I'm going to jump in. And I put out my first post ever in August of 23, I believe it was, 22, August of 22. And it got 128,000 impressions. And I didn't even know what an impression was. Someone had to explain that to me. So we fast forward 4 months. I put a post out about severance. It got over 400,000 impressions. And now I've got like 20 people reaching out to me, pleading with me to help them with their severance. So I get on the phone with folks. I help them for free for like 3, 4, 5 months. And then I've got a call with some guy from Israel who wants me to get on a call with him to give him some advice on something. Some US company wanted him to open up a Israeli office and he was asking me to review the agreement that they set up. I said, this is so one-sided that you could create this incredible business for them, and then they terminate you and you've got nothing. So you need to create something with KPIs that will automatically invoke a joint venture that you would be a 50% owner of. And he thought it was the most brilliant idea in the world. So he says, Dan, how much do I owe you? I said, well, I've been kind of doing this for free for folks, and I'm not really charging anybody. He has this big belly laugh and then calls me some name in Hebrew. I get no idea what he says, but he's still laughing. I said, what did you just call me? He says, I called you a sucker. I said, what do you mean you called me a sucker? Why am I a sucker? I help you out like this and you insult me? I was kind of all in good fun. And then he laughs again and says, exactly, you're a sucker. So he basically go round and round. He demands that I give him my wife's Venmo because I don't even have one of those. And he sends me like $300. And from that very day, I started charging people. And now 2 years later, we've got 2,300 paid clients. I help people out in 8 practice areas, whether it's employment agreements, restrictive clauses, severance, PIPs, stock equity grants, comp plans, commission or wage disputes, or general coaching guidance and advice. And it's been the most rewarding work of my life. I post every day on LinkedIn, twice a day. I've posted over 1,100 times. I've generated over 70 million impressions in doing so. And having the time of my life every day is a joy.
That is the dream. That's fantastic to hear. And I think that it's a testament to just what a big problem this is, that your first post got 140,000 impressions. Like I spent a lot of time posting on LinkedIn, and I've had one post do 900,000 impressions, but the rest do like 1,000. There is a need, a huge need for this. And yeah, it just speaks to just how important this is and how unaddressed it is. Everyone on LinkedIn is just bragging and sharing knowledge, and it's great. But I think there's an element of real talk to your posts that shines through. Every time I see a post from you, I read the whole thing. It's because it's captivating. It's like these stories I've heard them for years. And then unfortunately, fairly recently, over the last year, I experienced it myself. I ended up with a bad manager, and I did a lot to protect myself, and I thought that the company would protect myself with all of the systems of HR, employee relations, leave policies, all these things that they tout as super important and core to making sure that it's a fair and equitable workplace. Turns out they're completely one-sided, and there's actually no intention for protecting the employee at all. That was very disappointing. And so when I read your posts and I hear these stories of other people, it really resonates with my experience and what I've heard from other people.
What's even worse, I've heard this so many times. I work with so many folks that went on paternity leave and then they came back and now they're coming back to a PIP. Yet they've been a star performer throughout their tenure. So I mean, you'll get some of these big companies out there that have like 5 months paternity offer. And if you actually ever consider taking the full amount, you're going to be terminated over and over again. I've seen people that will take the first 2 months and then save the next 3 months for later, and they never get a chance to do it. And I'm not saying this is across the board. I'm not saying this is every situation, but I've heard it literally 50, 60, 70 times. So it's not an outlier. It's something that people need to be aware of and factor in and take into consideration when they're taking actions.
I'm curious, Dan, have you noticed like an uptick in this after COVID? Because I feel like during COVID, the pendulum of power swung towards the employees for a minute, maybe a year, and then it seems to have swung back like a wrecking ball in the other direction in terms of the power in the employers. Have you seen anything different, or has this just been happening forever?
I never saw the swing back to the employee. It seems like it's been on the employer side now since COVID. The whole thing is cyclical. For a long time, the employee had the control or the power or the leverage just based on the economy and the growth and the supply and demand of key labor. But I haven't really see it swing back. I mean, my business is just going crazy. I just don't know because it's the first of its kind or because there's a change in the trend from a macro perspective. I mean, I've had 5,200 people since October of 23 fill out a type form of mine to get background information.
That's a lot of people. Yeah.
So, I mean, that just kind of tells you I'm getting between emails and DMs, I'm getting well over 100 inquiries a day, every single day. It's happening everywhere. It's not just big layoffs, not just big companies and small companies. It's across the board. It's picking people off one at a time. It's using PIPs wrongly to do informal layoffs. Layoffs are happening. It's targeting people and terminating them based on false pretenses. It has not slowed down at all. It's been picking up, at least from where I'm sitting.
Yeah, I've been hearing about it quite a bit over the years as well. Let's talk about what we can do about it. This podcast is all about crafting a life you love and making work optional. And you do that through building financial independence. And obviously, resilience is a big part of that. And the way that most people build wealth is through a job. And so you're speaking to somebody who's working in corporate America. What would you advise them on how to use that job to build wealth and to, grow as a person and whatnot? How would you advise them on building resilience into that process? And what should they keep in mind about their employer?
I mean, the first thing is that you should only, spend to your means. Anyone who's paying interest on a credit card is just really hurting themselves in a big way. I literally put every expense in my entire life on a credit card, and I have for 35 years. And I've probably gotten several $100,000 in benefits from the credit card by doing so. And I pay my balances in full on time every month. And if I don't have the money to pay it, then I don't spend it. So that would be the first thing. The second thing I would say is that you need to have options. You need to diversify. You can't put all your eggs in one basket, because when you do, you're subjected to the whims of the employer. And all of a sudden they pull that rug out from underneath you, and you have a huge mortgage, you have a family, you have bills to pay, and you don't know where that income is coming from. So you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. If you can diversify your income stream through a side hustle or something like that, there's certainly an ability to do that. Find out what your passion is, find out what you're knowledgeable about, be creative, try different things, and see if you can create alternative revenue streams. Build out your network. Your network is currency in a huge way. When you need to find a job, your network can help you get one quickly. When there's opportunities out there and you're stagnant in your job, you want to put feelers out there. You don't want to just do nothing and focus inward. And then all of a sudden you're let go and you're reaching out to people you haven't spoken to in 3 years and think they're going to help you. Manage your career. Don't just show up for a job every day and go home. Have a strategy. Where do you want to be in 6 months, in 2 years, in 5 years? What do you want to be earning? What do you want to be doing? What companies would you like to see yourself working for? And what steps are you taking to make that happen? And as far as resiliency goes, I mean, I've been resilient my whole life. It's just how I'm wired. I'm a fighter. I don't take no for an answer. I keep going. I mean, my motto is through sheer will and determination, one can achieve anything. Just never give up and keep trying different ways until it works. And to me, that's the definition of resilience.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's great advice. Diversify your income. Live below your means, I think is absolutely critical. That goes without saying. I think our audience would be pretty good at that, but you need to live below your means. And then if you can start diversifying, you build additional resilience into the process. I think about the layoffs. When Google laid off 12,000 people in the middle of the night 2 years ago, in the beginning of January 2023, I just could not turn away from the posts on LinkedIn. And I was completely shocked by it. But I'm thinking about all these people that have these $1, $2, $3 million houses in California or wherever, that, those are normal houses, but they have a humongous mortgage that they're supporting that with. And the job is the only way that works. And if they don't have diversification or significant runway in their finances, you're screwed as soon as that hammer drops. Yeah. And then what you said about the network, I think that is absolutely key, and just continuing to nurture those relationships. And that's one of the things that I did well internally at Google, but outside of Google could have done a lot more in that way. And that's something that I didn't really do. And I realized recently that I was like thinking that, I can just do a good job and it'll all be good. And I could just show the receipts of the work that I've done and I'll be good, like I have been for the previous 13 years. And it turned out like, no, what I actually should have done is decided to make a move, right? And got out of that situation as soon as things started getting a little bit difficult.
So I mean, that's a great segue, because I want to share this with the audience, is that, when you're an employer, things are often going well for a while. You get hired into a job by your hiring manager. They like you, you like them. Everything's going great until it's not anymore. And usually it's associated with a new manager coming in. It seems like it's 8 out of 10 times, or new leadership with a different direction. So what I tell folks is to keep their antennas up. Notice when things are happening that are different and they feel different, because oftentimes they'll try to manage you out of the business, and they'll do it in a very subtle way in hopes you'll just leave on your own. So first it starts off with sort of not asking you about your weekends or your personal life anymore. They start excluding you from meetings that normally you should have been at. They may question things that never matter anymore, nitpicking about things. You notice them treating you differently than others, less patience, maybe isolation, humiliation, compensation theft, reducing compensation. All these things happen. And first subtly, and then more so, and then eventually to a coaching plan, and then a PIP, and then to terminate you. And they do all of this so that you'll leave on your own to save on separation costs, to not have a termination on the record, no unemployment, no severance, and you're gone. They don't have to go through that whole PIP process. And it's shameful that that's the way so many employers choose to treat employees about something as important as their livelihood, as their income, what they need to provide for their family. And it's all to save a little bit of money on separation costs at the expense of the mental anguish of the employee. So when these things are happening, you want to have your antennas up. When things are a little different than before, you're probably not just imagining it. It might be happening. And you want to document it as it's going on. What I call is this phrase that I've coined called my buckets of wrongdoing. And it's basically the actions that your manager or your employer are doing to manage you out of the business and make you miserable. So identify what they are, just listed a whole bunch, the humiliation, the isolation, all that stuff, and then populate them with these specific actions. Because individually, your manager or your employer might say, oh, Adam, you're reading into things, you're making things up, that never happened, you're paranoid. One or two can be easily dismissed. But when you show a clear pattern of targeting, of wrongdoing, and you stack it all up, it's something that can't be dismissed, and it shows their true intent.
And what can you do with that? Because I did a lot of that, right? I did some of it in the moment. I did some of it as things escalated to 11. Yeah, but what can you do with that? Who are you showing that to like have any sort of impact with it?
I help people in 6 scenarios, either when they're terminated to negotiate for a severance or a better one, or they're still employed and they're miserable and they're being managed out of the business and the writing is on the wall, but the company doesn't want to own it. So I help employees bring a termination to a head and then negotiate a severance from there. And what we do is we gather up all the evidence, all the screenshots, all the narrative that's been going on for months and months and months to show the employer that this clearly is their desired outcome, despite the fact that you love your job, you love the company, you love your colleagues and clients and everyone else, and you'd love to stay here for a long time. It's very clear that the employer does not want you here. And these are the actions that you have endured to show that. And it's harmful to one's mental health and confidence to work in an environment where they're not wanted, and shown that every day. So it's clear that you don't want me here. It's in the best interest of both parties to resolve this amicably. I'm not resigning on my own and harming myself financially or professionally. And that's what we do. We stack up the case and show it in a really shameful way about what's gone on. And we let them know that we're going to escalate this to the C-suite, to the board of directors, to the EEOC, if you're in a protected class, that you're more of a pain in the ass than you're worth, and why it's in the best interest of the employer to resolve this amicably. And if they're unwilling to do so, what options you have in front of them, and you show them beyond any doubt that you will pursue them. And this isn't a game of chicken or poker or who's going to blink first.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You kind of force the issue with all of the evidence before, so proactively versus reactively.
Reactively as well. Like we said, whether you could be terminated with a severance, you want to negotiate for a better one. You want to use all of these factors to do so. You've been terminated with no severance and want to negotiate for one. Or you're on a PIP, you're on FMLA leave. You're being given this option of choosing a PIP that they dress up as unattainable and brutal and micromanaged to death. Or you choose a severance. And when you choose a severance, you have now just resigned because you now have initiated the termination. You're now likely not eligible for unemployment. You can't really negotiate the severance. There's no termination on anyone's record. It's a trick that the employer will often play where they say, hey, you can have a severance. And everyone's like, oh, great. That would be great. And then you go apply for unemployment 6 weeks later and you found out that you had resigned and you're not eligible for it. And then there's scenarios where you're just miserable. The company would be more than happy to continue to have you add value and work, but they created this toxic work environment that's, your health is suffering in, and you need to get out. And we document the environment and we show them that they have denied the employee a reasonable opportunity to provide a safe environment where they can do their job in a non-discriminatory, toxic environment.
It's just like everything you're saying, it reads like a laundry list of what I experienced and what I've heard countless of my friends, maybe not countless, but what I've heard many of my friends have experienced as well. Long-time loyal employees doing great work, contributing not just in their core role, but to the broader company as well. I'm actually starting to think that is a bit of a like raising up a nail to get smashed by a hammer. If you are doing anything beyond your core role, it seems to have become a liability where I was working.
What I find out is that companies manage to the middle, right? I mean, if you're a poor performer doing 5, 10, 20%, obviously they need to get rid of you. But if you're a top performer killing it, breaking the comp plan, having massive deals that require 6-figure payouts, the leadership, quote unquote, the egotist, the sociopath, the narcissist will not allow you to earn that money because they're so much better than you. They can't allow some lowly salesperson to go make $500,000 or $1 million when they're making $400,000 but have $10 million in equity that the salesperson has helped grow significantly for the company.
Yeah, that's crazy. So Dan, speaking of this tactic that they use to make your life miserable to try to get you out, it's my understanding that like harassment and bullying and this type of behavior is not illegal in any way in the United States. Is that true? When I kind of brought this up, and I spoke to an attorney, they're like, yeah, like unless you're in a protected class, bullying and harassment aren't really against the law and they can basically do it. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
So let me kind of tell you my thoughts about what the attorneys have to tell you. So the attorneys want your case to be open and shut, black and white, highly lucrative, better than any case they have, or they tell you that you have no case, or it'll cost too much to bother with. As an employee at will, they can terminate you at any time. The problem is that most of this is a gray area, which is why there's a multi-billion-dollar litigation industry, and that everyone is there to interpret what the laws say and apply them to each specific situation. If you can show a blatant case of harassment, of bullying, of discrimination, of what have you, I mean, certainly you can pursue it. But again, the problem is that no one does. I would argue that 95%, if not more, of the people who are wronged in the employment landscape just take it and walk away in silence and carry years or decades of regret with it. If an employer can get away with it, they're going to continue to do it, legal or not. It's up to us individually, collectively, to stand up to it, to call it out, to let them know that it's more costly financially and reputationally to do the wrong thing than continue to do these things.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's just such a harmful and like aspect to this, right? Like I think about when I was in that meeting and I'm in a meeting to get on the same page because I'm being told a bunch of gaslighting that makes no sense whatsoever. And I engage HR to like try to get some clarity. And then we get on a meeting, in pops the HR people. And the feeling that I had in my body was like I was being stabbed in the front and the back, like physical, horrendous pain that lasted for hours. And I'm in a situation, we can talk about this in a minute, that I have FU money. I've been saving, I've been living below my means, I've been investing for years to build resilience, to pursue financial independence. So I don't need their money. And I still had this horrendous feeling of betrayal and just physical pain. I think about people who they're the sole breadwinner. They have a $2 million regular house in California, and they have people that depend on them. Imagine that experience and then having to leave that meeting. It should be illegal to do that, in my opinion. And probably in Europe, it is illegal.
Your manager will stab you in the heart, but your HR business manager stabs you in the back. I literally say that all the time. So the HR person wants to think that they're there for you, that they're there to mediate concerns, that they want to be fair. They'll take your concerns in confidence. There won't be retaliation. None of that is true. That's why there is such a disdain for human resources. I mean, I've seen so many people come onto my posts and defending human resources and say, well, they're no different than the CFO or the support team or the other areas. Well, they actually are, because they present themselves to be completely different than what they are. The CFO in these other roles are not presenting themselves as something else to then have employees rely on that trust, which is then broken, because never existed in the first place, but is presented as that way. It's just so wrong.
Yeah, I was told every interaction with them that they do not tolerate retaliation for any reason, especially for raising concerns.
The fact that they state that we don't retaliate, to me, is enough to know that they do. Why would you ever have to tell someone that we don't do something bad?
Yeah, that's a good point. If you need to say it, it's not a good sign. Okay, so yeah, I guess, let's see. I mentioned in this meeting where I was stabbed in the heart and the back. From that moment, I was bold. because I have FU money, because I don't need the pennies they were offering me, and I don't even need their salary. I was able to be bold in moving forward and fighting back. How do you think about finances and building financial resilience into being able to navigate these situations? As much as you prepare, as much as you do all the things you mentioned earlier, you can find yourself in this situation.
So it's a really great point. I mean, this is one of the areas where they try to take advantage. The employer has very little leverage when it comes time to termination and severance, although they present it as the opposite. That you literally have something that they seek, and they're willing to pay you a lot of money for in some instances. Thousands, tens of thousands, sometimes even hundreds of thousands I've seen. So they present it as the opposite of reality. They put this false deadline on you. They lure, 5 figures in money in front of you while you're unemployed, you're blindsided, you're in shock, you've got bills and responsibilities to pay, you don't know when the next job is coming, you don't understand the process and how it works and how severance works, you've never been through it before. The employer certainly is not forthcoming with it. You're in the dark, you don't know how to respond to it, and they take advantage of it. Ultimately, you have the leverage. You have something they seek. So when you can show them that you understand the game and why it's played and how they benefit from it, you can show them why it's in their best interest to resolve it amicably and what options you have in front of you to do something about it, is when you'll have success doing it. When it comes to money, so in addition to the deadline and the dollar amount and the unemployment and the anxiety, the next thing they do is they drag it out. When you've already showed them the deadline means nothing to you, when you already showed them that you're not signing for that little bit, now they'll drag it out month after month after month sometimes. And sometimes the employee cannot hang on. They do not have the finances there to be able to sustain and are now having to go and settle for that much smaller severance than they likely would get because the employer is leveraging them with. I had a client that I worked with about 1.5 years ago. This person was a VP of revenue CRO type role. It was a horrendous situation. They had disclosed a medical condition. Within 5 days of doing so, were taken out of their role and put on special projects. And then within 2 or 3 weeks of that, were terminated. They foolishly just signed the severance. And then someone told them about me. They came to me. We revoked it because it was within the 7-day window to do so. And we put together this scathing, reputationally damaging, shameful document that really just pulled at the heartstrings on so many levels. We were able to negotiate a much better offer, but we could have gotten probably double what she ended up with, because she couldn't go on any further. She didn't have the money to pay for her mortgage the following month. And if she did, and could have stuck it out for another 2, 4, 6 weeks potentially, she could have gotten, who knows, $30, $40, $50, $60, $70,000 more than what she did. It was so reputationally damaging to the company. And she had it all documented, but did not have the financial wherewithal to do anything with it. Another reason why you need to plan, need to have your finances in order so that you're not taken advantage of in these types of situations.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you say you have something that they want, is that signing the document, releasing them of all liability and resigning?
Well, not resigning, but releasing them of all any claim that you could have, any liability, a promise to not sue. In essence, once you sign that severance, it's as if you never existed at the company. They never have to hear from you again. They are free from any obligation to you.
Yeah, they definitely want you to sign that. My situation was they gave me 3 days to decide if I wanted the severance or go on essentially indefinite purgatory, because they say PIPs don't exist, allegedly, and had to make a decision. And if I didn't, then essentially I'm staying and going on the indefinite purgatory. So that deadline was fairly real in this scenario. And then when I tried to negotiate, they were not willing to do anything in that moment.
That's because you're playing into their hand. You're playing their game. They're making you choose. And I say, I'm not choosing anything. You're coming to me and initiating something. Why am I being pressured and coerced to make a decision that goes against my wishes? So what I tell them is, I'm not resigning. First of all, I let them know that thank you for disrespecting me and presenting this as a good thing like a severance, when in reality, you're trying to trick me about something as important as my livelihood, and the ramifications of doing so are significant. No unemployment. In Massachusetts, unemployment could be worth as much as $30,000. And people are signing severance offers for $5,000 and losing unemployment worth potentially $30,000. I would let them know that I'm not resigning. Thank you very much. I feel that I have done a great job here and will continue to do a good job and work hard every single day. And if the company chooses to put you on a PIP, you have no ability to stop them from doing so. That's their choice to do so. But you certainly do not have to be party to it or make a decision around it. These are the actions that they must take, not you.
Yeah, that makes sense. You just kind of go hard at them and basically call it what it is. Have you ever seen anybody successfully come off of a PIP?
I mean, I guess it all starts with the intent of the PIP. I've heard people beat PIPs and stay on and get put on a PIP the next month. I've heard stories of when I post about PIPs and, it gets 1.5 million impressions and 1,000 comments. There's, dozens and dozens of people that say they love PIPs. They've been on PIPs. It's saved their career, gave them the wake up that they needed, and they were able to retain it and they deserved it and all that. And I would argue, why did you need that in the first place? Why did you need the threat of termination in order for you to do your job? Why did the company all of a sudden care enough about you to want to invest the time and training and support to help you improve? Why wasn't that provided all along so it never got to this point? Where's the accountability on behalf of the manager to do the right thing all along until things get bad? And now it's all on you to figure it out with a threat of termination looming.
That reminds me of something I saw you post the other day, and just like that, the fact that there's no accountability for the manager. The manager's job is to get the best out of the employee. And somehow the manager can basically target and attack the employee and come out the other side looking like a hero. Like literally, as this manager was making my whole team miserable and targeting individual people, first it was another person, then it was me. During this process, this person got promoted. Like, what gives?
Yeah, I see that all the time. I had a manager that went to their skip to complain about their manager. The skip acknowledged it, said it was wrongful, was going to take action to fix it. A month later, the manager got promoted by the skip.
Is it just that like the incentives to save a little bit of money and cut costs from the top are so powerful that these people are all aligned to like just execute the plan? Like just get rid of, it feels like they got some sort of quota. Everyone's got to get rid of somebody. And are they just doing
it's short-term thinking, It's like when you're driven by financials on a month-to-month or quarter-to-quarter basis, and you're not looking at things long-term or strategically, then you make short-sighted decisions that end up shooting yourself in the foot and can negatively impact your ability to grow longer term.
Yeah, I guess so. It just doesn't make too much sense in my mind.
I think that when you talk about resiliency, a lot of times these things happen, people are embarrassed and ashamed to talk about it. And they go away quietly and they keep these things to themselves. Nobody knows just how often it happens. They personalize it and they don't realize how frequent it happens to people. They start to blame themselves and question themselves, and their self-confidence gets sapped. They start to become a shell of themselves, and they've done nothing wrong. It's just they can't believe the gaslighting that's going on and the lies. They say, this can't be true. This must be about me. I must have done something wrong. When you're in this game that oftentimes the employee doesn't even know it's going on until it's been going on for months and months, don't let it get you down. Don't get yourself into a depression. Step away if you need to. There is FMLA. People think there's some sort of a stigmatism associated with mental health, associated with taking a leave of absence, that you're taking advantage of the employer. People will look down at you negatively as being weak or something. And none of that is true. This is an old bullying mentality from many generations ago. And these options and rights are available to you. And if it's applicable, you should go ahead and use them. The other thing I want to say is that when you're going through a termination, when you're being managed out of the business, it can be really difficult for an employee to kind of see the forest through the trees. They start to, again, question themselves. They start to, you got to realize that oftentimes these things are happening intentional and you don't realize it. So you want to look at it like a consultant and detach yourself from it to be able to look down and assess what's gone on, identify the dots, connect them, and then weave them together in a compelling narrative. And when you do that, all of a sudden you start looking at things through a different lens. Things start to fit together more, and a light goes on, and you realize what's been going on for some time, and you feel empowered and invigorated, not so much like a victim that's waiting for the next thing to happen to you and responding. Rather, know what's going on. Instead of reacting, be proactive. Expect what's coming next and laugh at it. Look at it in shame and disgust, and don't personalize it onto yourself. It's about them that's doing this to you in a deceitful, underhanded, shameful way. And this is them doing this. This isn't you. But yet the employee personalizes this and carries this with them and questions themselves. And it ends up leaving people a shell of themselves. So what they really need to do is step back, realize what's going on, look at the facts, identify them, connect them all together, and stand up and put together a plan on what you need to do next.
Yeah, that's huge. I think that you hit on so much there. And this idea that people personalize it, they take it on themselves. And there's something about when it's happening to someone else, it's like, maybe there was something I was missing. Maybe they weren't doing, what they needed to do or something like that. There are people who aren't meeting expectations and they're in that, doing that 10 to 20% you were saying, and there needs to be a process to get those people out of the business. But what people need to realize is this happens constantly. And it's like, it's a playbook, right? They have these tried and true methods to make your life miserable, then to get you on what I call the slide. Once a manager starts initiating this process, certainly when they start bringing HR into the process, it's like they put you on a slide and the end of the slide is out the door. They put me on this PIP that doesn't exist, and I was crushing it. Like, they doubled my workload. I created 10 account plans in 3 weeks. I was managing $500 million in business, and my account plans were escalated all the way up to the VP and president level. And yet every time I'd meet with my manager, I'd get this just like ridiculous feedback that was like so nitpicky and literally not even true, that it's like, what's going on here? And then even now, I'm like 4 months out and I'm still angry about it, feeling the betrayal of it. And every once in a while it creeps into my head. It's like, is it me? And, the isolation you were describing, like I started to feel like a ghost walking around the office. And it's like, why should I feel shame about this when I'm not only been loyal, done a great job, got promoted time after time, contributed in ways outside of my core role to build the company culture and things like that. I've done great work, and they are fabricating this nonsense against me. Why should I feel bad? And so I think that it is really important that people...
The reason why that stayed with you like that is because you were never able to be heard. They treated you a certain way, never able to have your voice heard, never able to share what was really going on from your perspective. And now you're just kind of carrying it around. And every once in a while, this continue to pop up in your head when you least expect it. I've been through something similar, a toxic environment. It can linger on literally for years. You need to find other things to populate your mind with, and you need to find a way to get closure with it to stand up to it. That's why I always say that every severance offer should be negotiated. Employers will rarely offer what they're willing to pay. Most employees don't even know that you can negotiate severance, never mind how to go about it. As a result, employers will usually about half of what they're willing to, because they don't have to do more. Their goal is to reduce separation costs at all costs. Break the pattern, stand up to it, call it out, make it difficult for the employer to get away with these actions. Escalate it within the organization. Sometimes in larger organizations, the C-suite doesn't even know what the middle management is doing to carry out their wishes, and frankly would be ashamed at some of the tactics that they use to do it.
You're absolutely right. I did tell my story, right? I did go to employee relations. I did file multiple complaints. Obviously, they were all ignored, and which is even worse, right? Like I feel like, so that's why it is lingering in the back of my head. You mentioned people carry this around for years. How have you advised people to just kind of release that and move forward?
You played into their game. I mean, you're going to employee relations. That's literally their job, is to tell you that there's nothing wrong. Has there ever been an internal HR investigation that the employer was found to have done something wrong?
Doesn't seem like it.
So, I mean, what I would have done is I would have broken out of these middle managers, HR business partners, and I would have escalated a couple layers down from the chief people officer and asked them to open up an investigation against the HR business person, against your manager, and make some strong claims about how you're being managed out of the business in a toxic way based on lies and deceit.
Yeah, I think that for me, one of the reasons I would describe that as going the nuclear option. And I had a lot of ideas about that. For me, I want them to be a client in the future, right? I had been planting seeds I want to come back and do my workshop with them. And I have great relationships with people up and down the organization because I've been there for years. So I didn't want to like burn those bridges. Maybe that wasn't the right approach, but I did end up with nothing.
I tell people this all the time, and I've heard the exact same thing that you said before. Worked with someone who was really horribly terminated from a big networking company out in California and didn't want to stand up to it because they hoped that they could be a consultant back to them in the future. You've been promised a heads up if there's any problem. You've done a great job. Now you're being discarded. And the CEO comes to you and says, hey, we're really sorry about this. We're really sorry to see you go, but, we got to do this, but we're going to give you some really good references. Our PE firm that owns us, they've got a lot of other companies in their portfolio. We can put in a good word for you. So maybe, you can get placed at one of those companies. And they do this so you'll just go away quietly with your tail between your legs and never say a word. 9 out of 10 times, there was never even any intent of doing anything, never mind actually doing something. And then the same thing applies with back channeling or burning the bridge. The company does wrong to you, and you should be in fear that if you share any of this with anybody, that your whole world will become crumbling down upon you. Again, it's just bullying, it's manipulation, it's fear mongering. I say, live your life, man. I say, do what you want to do, and don't be in fear that someone else may do something against you because you want to do what you have every right to. You have no ability to know whether or not your company channels you, whether or not they try to harm your reputation. So let's say that you do speak up and you're afraid of something. So you have no ability to impact whether they say something or not. You have no idea what they're going to say or the ability to impact it either. And you have no way to confirm if it ever took place. To me, that's the definition of going batshit crazy here.
Worrying about something I could never know if it did or did not happen.
Or have any ability to impact whether it does or not.
True.
So that's my take on things, about going. And as far as I don't consider what I suggested to you, the nuclear option. The nuclear option would be putting out the scathing post and tagging people and doing that every day. The nuclear option would be going to escalate to the CEO, going to the board of directors, going to file with the EEOC to stand up to targeted wrongdoing by your manager to manage you out of the business and go to the HR or the head of HR that this is all coming down upon you. I don't consider that nuclear.
I appreciate you sharing that perspective because, I was very worried. I feel like I was pretty bold in pursuing my big vision, right? Like I always say, having FU money is essential to be able to navigate this without money being the primary concern. But the other thing that I found through this process that was critical is having a big vision for my life, right? Like, what am I working towards ultimately? And you talked about this when we were talking about managing your career and kind of building resilience against this proactively. But I was bold and I wanted to lead these workshops for this team and with clients. And I've been planting those seeds for years and years. And I actually went to the president of the Americas and pitched him this and had a great reception, a great relationship with him. And so while they're on the one track, they're trying to fire me. And on the other track, I'm being bold in taking these actions and making this stuff happen. Ultimately, I got a pilot on the books to do this and had great reception and all of that. And then I got fired one day before that was about to start at the end of Q3, which I think that these were two distinct tracks. I think that one hand didn't know what the other hand was doing. There's no way to know. So I didn't want to blow all of that up. It felt short-term thinking to me. But at the same time, they might have no intention of doing anything with me anyways.
Absolutely.
So anyways, yeah, you mentioned taking leave if that's what you need, taking mental health leave. A lot of companies offer this, but I'm wondering from your perspective, does this accelerate your demise?
When you mention a lot of companies offer this, I think there's a really good point that you're bringing up here, is that there's something called FMLA, Family Medical Leave Act. It's a federal benefit or law that employees are allowed to take up to 12 weeks of leave. At the federal level, it's unpaid, but your job is protected. They can't terminate you and they have to welcome you back. There's 12 states that I'm aware of, plus DC, that offers state-based paid leave. You'll be able to tell if you have it, but because you can look at your paycheck, and there's probably $4, $5, $6, $7, $8 every pay period taken out for state leave. If you have that, you can go and take up to 12 weeks of leave. Now, what I want to do is I want to warn people on how to go about it, because I've heard a lot of horrible stories about it. Don't go to your employer and say, hey, I need to take a mental health leave. Before your protection's in place, they very likely could terminate you. So you want to go to your doctor, who has probably filled this form out 100 times, and have them fill out the form, do the medical necessity, the diagnosis, the whole thing. And then you present to your employer the completed paperwork, not inquiring with them about how to go about going on FMLA. That's one thing I want to warn people about, because I can't even tell you the number of times situations happened. The other thing I want to say is that don't allow your employer to tell you, oh, don't bother with that paperwork and all that bureaucratic stuff. Just take PTO. Or, hey, we'll just let you take some time off. No worries. And then they terminate you while you're on leave because you don't have the protections of FMLA. Don't do shortcuts. Don't be blindly trusting of your employer when it comes to things like this. Question everything and what their motivation is and why they're going about it, and be careful on how you go about it.
And one thing I'll add to that is just in the environment that I was in, and I've heard others, kind of in these tech companies, if this scenario starts, get blindsided by a meeting like this where they say, hey, you have 3 days to decide if you want to leave or go on a PIP, you can go on leave right away. Most of the time, they have these leave administrators that you can call and go on leave, and then you can get the paperwork, but you're already on leave and already in that process.
Again, you can go on leave at any time while you're employed, even before you make a decision to go on a PIP or not. Yeah, I mean, if there is a third-party administrator the company has hired to handle these things, some of the human resources functions, and specifically, leave, in theory, once you submit that application online, you're safe. I personally would like to have, because I'm not an overly trusting person, I personally would like to have my doctor's note and have the paperwork all signed, sealed, and delivered, right, and have that ready, rather than, requesting the leave and then taking 2, 3, 4, 5 days to then get the paperwork to do it. In theory, you should be okay. I'd rather have that backup ready.
Get that federally protected paperwork taken care of ahead of time. That makes sense. Yeah, certainly don't go and tell them you're going to do it, because that just opens you up to risk. Question related to that. If somebody tells their employer that they're going to be taking maternity or paternity leave, is there any protection for them?
So many people that have been terminated for doing so. I think that you need to, because if you don't, then they can terminate you. And now they haven't been notified of any intended leave. And now you can't make any claims of that you were terminated because you were going to go on leave. It's a tight rope to walk. I often tell folks to not share your vulnerabilities because the employer will use it against you. Whether or not you're going through a divorce, or whether you're getting married and going on a honeymoon, or building a new house, or closing on a mortgage, or have a parent in hospice, or, have a medical condition. It just seems that so many times that I've heard stories of people sharing these things with their manager, looking for empathy, trying to proactively explain why there may be some challenges in performance in the near term so that they understand it. And instead of supporting them, they're looking at them as a liability and terminating them.
All right, Dan, let's shift gears now into what I call the mindful fire final four. Are you ready?
Sure.
All right. So the first question is all about this idea of envisioning, which is thinking big about your life and using kind of the predictive nature of your brain to, quote unquote, plant seeds to make it a reality. I'm curious, you have this business that you've built, have an overwhelming demand. What is your big vision for this business and what you'd like to see your impact be in the world?
That is a really great question, one that I have literally been suffering with for about a year now, about what to do with this business. I know that I could scale it into a massive business. I'm not sure that's necessarily something I want to do. I'm also, right now, I touch every single client that we work with, everyone I'm working with on every case. Obviously, I can't scale that beyond myself. I'm not sure how much I'll lose by not being involved in every case. Is there a way to productize the services and still have that emotional hands-on touch? Is there different ways that you can have different levels of service, like bronze, silver, gold, and platinum? So yeah, that's something that I struggle with. In terms of the impact, I can't even begin to tell you how truly blessed I am. It's the work of my lifetime. I am so fortunate to be doing this. I literally said to myself like 2.5 years ago, when True Commission was just going nowhere, if I drop dead tomorrow, what have I accomplished? Who have I impacted? Who have I touched? Who will care? What will people look back upon? I wasn't at all satisfied with the answer at that point. It's shocking that just kind of going on LinkedIn every day, posting every day, being genuine, being real, being truthful, coming here with the right intent, expecting nothing in return, has just completely dramatically changed my life in every way. Every day has purpose and substance and impact. I know for a fact that I am literally impacting hundreds of people every month, or probably even more than that. I'm getting the DMs every day from people who are not comfortable engaging in the content that their employer tracks. They feel that they'll be retaliated against, and they're telling me that I'm doing God's work, that my posts speak to them, that it's help them lift up their spirits. They've taken my guidance and use it for themselves to negotiate better offers, better severance, better compensation agreements. It's mind-boggling. I'm truly blessed to be in this position, and very grateful for it.
Yeah, I mean, that was my experience when I came across your content. It was like, oh my God, I'm not alone. This is happening all over the place. And here is someone who gets it, who cares, and who is making a difference in various ways with your content. And so thank you for doing that work, just showing people that they're not alone. I think that is so important.
Thank you.
All right, Dan, the second question is, what piece of advice would you give to someone early on their path to financial independence?
I am probably like the textbook example of it. I literally began tracking every penny that I spent and earned going back to 1989 on a monthly basis. First thing is, you need to know what you're earning and where the money is going. And you need to prioritize it. And you need to plan for it. There's lots of opportunities out there if you're knowledgeable and informed, where you can really set yourself up for success, make use of various benefits and things that are out there. Like the credit card thing, for example. I mean, I probably got $300,000 back in credit cards in the last 35 years. I mean, literally, free money, tax-free.
Tax-free money, yeah.
Yeah. Enjoy your life, have balance. Maybe I look back and wish that I, was a little bit more loose with the purse strings, perhaps. And maybe I'm now at the stage now in life where I can be, which is wonderful. Don't just live for the moment. There needs to be balance. All three of my kids' college educations were probably funded at 125%. Of their need. Basically, the government or interest paid for 65% of their education. Plan ahead. There's things available to you. Use 401k matches. Put money aside. I would put $50 aside every week to a 401k and to my kids' 529s. The power of compounding is incredible. Run some scenarios and you'll see it for yourself. Go and take $100 and start investing it at 21. And see where it's worth in 65 years, at 65, and do the same thing, start at 30. Just 9 years difference. And you'll be amazed at the difference of that value is at the age of 65.
It's an absolute game changer. Yeah, compound interest, they say it's the eighth wonder of the world. All right, the third question is, what piece of advice would you give to somebody getting started with meditation and or mindfulness?
Well, that's really interesting because my mind goes a million miles. It doesn't stop. I've never had a sip of coffee in my life, and I wake up wired every day. I am up at 3, 4 in the morning every day. I work out every day. I have been someone who has never been able to meditate. And I think the issue is the definition of it. I think people don't really understand what it means. So to me, it meant like crossing my hands and sitting in the dark and humming or something. I don't know. But I mean, whatever it is for you. And for what I find is that walks in the woods by myself with a dog early in the morning, taking a long shower and letting my mind just go off and think. When I'm feeling a lot of stress, I do massive breathing exercises and it just relieves it all. So I guess one could say that that's a form of that. And it's something that I've been able to do successfully for myself.
Can you share a little bit more about the breathing exercise?
Yeah, it's just when things are stressful, when things are piling up and you can feel like the anxiety and stress building, I just like to take everything out of my mind. I like to close my eyes and I just breathe in as deeply as I can and out as far as I can. And you can physically feel it releasing from your body.
So just deep breath in, longer breath out, calms your nervous system.
Yeah. It works for me.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. And then finally, the last question, Dan, is how can people connect with you online? Obviously, they can follow you on LinkedIn, but how can people connect with you online, learn more about your services, and reach out to you?
Yeah. So, we've got a website, dangoodmanea.com. I'm on LinkedIn, obviously, DMs, emails. I'm posting twice a day, 7 days a week, doing 14 times a week now, coming up on a year doing that, posting every day for a couple of years now. Yeah, just reach out. I respond to all DMs. If you do an inquiry through our website, we've got some back-end folks that are managing all that as well. If you need a consult across any of those 8 practice areas, you can sign up on our website. You can go through my LinkedIn profile to do it as well, through our type form. Yeah, I'm not going away. I'm here for the long term. It's an incredible ride I've been on in a short period of time. And again, it's the most empowering work of my life and grateful to be doing it.
Amazing. Thank you again for doing it. You're probably the most important person that I follow on LinkedIn for myself, but also for the community at large, because more than likely people are going to run into some aspect of this in their career and they need to be prepared. So I really appreciate you being here and sharing your wisdom and experience with the audience so that my audience can hear it and kind of have it in their mind, plant the seeds in their mind to be ready when that hopefully doesn't, but inevitably will come across their plate. So thank you again, Dan.
Thanks for having me on. It was a pleasure. I always like to share my message with folks and hope folks can benefit from it. So thank you.
Thanks for joining me on today's episode of the Mindful Fire podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, I invite you to hit subscribe wherever you're listening to this. This just lets the platforms know you're getting value from the episodes and you want to be here when I release additional content. If you're ready to start your Mindful Fire journey, go to mindfulfire.org/start and download my free envisioning guide. In just 10 minutes, this guide will help you craft a clear and inspiring vision for your life. Again, you can download it for free at mindfulfire.org/start. Thanks again, and I'll catch you next time on the Mindful Fire podcast.